In this video from Zen Yarn Garden, we're going to tackle how to work 3 popular knitting cast-ons: the Longtail Cast-On, the Knitted Cast-On, and the Cable Cast-On. In knitting, one of the most common cast-ons you're going to come across is the Longtail Cast-On. The Longtail Cast-On gets its name because it requires a long tail to work. So the first thing I want to show you how to do today is how to estimate the long tail for your cast-on. So what we need to do is find the tail end of our yarn, which is right here. Then we're going to hold that tail end against our knitting needle and wrap it around our needle. For demonstration's sake, I'm going to do 10 times. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So approximately 1 wrap around the needle here is equal to 1 stitch cast on. I really like this trick because you can always count just 10 wraps around your needle, pinch off your yarn, remove your needle, and know that this length here between my fingers is approximately what I will need to cast on 10 stitches using a longtail cast on and this knitting needle that I wrapped it around to do a longtail cast on. You can estimate any number of stitches using this method, and you can fold over your yarn with that estimated 10 stitches over and over again to estimate even more stitches. But for demonstration's sake, we're going to stick to 10 right here. So you estimate your long tail length, and then you're going to add 4 to 6 inches to have a little extra at the end. Next, what we've got to do is create a slip knot. To create a slip knot, you can wrap your yarn around 2 fingers like this, creating a little fish shape, if you can see that there. And then what you're going to do is take your knitting needle and stab the fish in the face, grab the far piece of yarn and draw it through. So this first slip knot counts as our first stitch of our cast on. But to cast on the rest, we're going to need to do something called creating a slingshot. To do this, we're going to wrap the tail end, the long tail end of our yarn around our thumb, and we're going to wrap the ball end of our yarn around our pointer finger. And then both of those pieces of yarn are held gently but securely in your latter 3 fingers of your non-dominant hand. Now that we have our slingshot set up, we're ready to cast on our remaining stitches. We need to take the tip of our knitting needle and swing it over the top of our hand towards our body and slide the tip of that needle along the inside of our thumb, catching the strand around our thumb and forming this loop here. Now we swing our knitting needle over the top of the yarn on our pointer finger and catch it, swinging back through that loop we created on our thumb. You drop the loop off of your thumb gently and catch the long tail end of your yarn to tighten it up to finish casting on that stitch. You'll notice that automatically as you tighten that yarn, your thumb resumes its position for that slingshot, so you're ready right away to cast on more stitches. Let me show you that one more time. We're going to swing the tip of our needle towards us, slide it along our thumb and catch that yarn, swing away from us and over the top of the yarn on our pointer finger to catch it, swing it under our thumb loop, dropping our thumb and tightening that tail end of our yarn around our needle. Be really careful with all cast-ons not to work too tightly. Now I'm going to keep casting on stitches so you can see just how well our 10 stitch long tail estimate trick worked. So just give me a quick second and I'll finish casting these on. You can see how automatic the action gets for a long tail cast on once you've practiced it a bit. And I can also see by checking the remainder of my long tail that I've got about 4 to 6 inches. So in fact, my tail estimate trick worked. And that's how you work a long tail cast on. The knitted cast on really lives up to its name in knitting because you are literally knitting every stitch that you are casting on except for the first one. For that first stitch, you're going to start with a slip knot, leaving about a 4 to 6 inch tail. Once you've got that slip knot on your needle, you're going to orient that needle in your left hand. And as you work this cast on, just like with all knitting, be careful that you're not working with the tail, that you're working with the yarn attached to your ball of yarn. So what you're going to do is insert your right hand needle into that slip knot just like you're working any other knit stitch in knitting. So you're going to do your yarn over and draw up a loop. Then you're going to pull on that loop just a little bit, not too hard, to give yourself some slack. After that, you're going to take that right hand needle and rotate it about 90 degrees clockwise, introducing a twist into that stitch you just knit. Then using your left hand needle, you'll pass that loop back over to the left hand needle, pulling out the right hand needle. And now, very simply, you've cast on your second stitch. And so other than that slip knot, every stitch you cast on using a knitted cast on is worked in that same way, which I'm going to show you one more time. So what we're going to do is insert that right hand needle knitwise into the next stitch on the left hand needle, yarn over and draw up a loop, lengthen it just a little bit, rotate that loop 90 degrees and pass it back over to your left hand needle. And voila, that is a basic knitted cast on. The great thing about the cable cast on in knitting is that it builds directly on the knitted cast on. So on my needle here, I've already got 2 stitches cast on because that first stitch is just a slip knot and the second stitch cast on is cast on identically to how you do the knitted cast on. So what we do to actually make this a cable cast on to build on that knitted cast on is the following. So for the rest of this cast on, after the first 2 stitches, we are going to be working in between these 2 stitches on our needle. So if we look at our needle like this, and I'm going to use my 2 fingers to demonstrate. So we're going to pretend my 2 fingers are the 2 stitches cast on my needle. So what we're going to do is, instead of inserting our needle into either of these stitches, we're going to insert it between the 2 of them, but over the knot formed by the first cast on stitches. So showing you that in yarn, because that's much more relevant, we are going to insert the tip of that right hand needle between the 2 stitches here. So we're going to work a knit stitch, again, between those 2 stitches on our needle and draw up a loop. Then the rest of it is just like the knitted cast on. We're going to elongate it just a little bit, give it a 90-degree twist, and pass that loop back to our left hand needle with that twist. So again, we're going to insert our right hand needle between those 2 stitches, draw up a loop, elongate it just a little bit, give it a twist, and pass it back to the left hand needle. Then to continue casting on your stitches, you're going to keep working between the latter 2 stitches. So the last 2 stitches on your left hand needle, you're going to keep knitting between the 2 of those, twisting your loop and passing it onto the left hand needle to continue until you have cast on your total number of stitches. So just remember, those first 2 stitches of a cable cast on are worked just like a knitted cast on, and then you continue from there to work your cable cast on. Thank you for watching these tutorials from Zen Yarn Garden. We look forward to seeing the wearable art you create using these cast ons.